Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor, the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. Why? Well, there it is. Well, there are a million reasons for it, but one of the reasons is we're taking episodes directly from our Off the Floor feed, and we're giving Prize Picks promo funds to those who give us the episodes that we choose. So extra bonus there, $2.99 per month, access to 10 different channels, and our stage shows, including channels for transactions, channels for trades, for the draft, channels for the WNBA. We have everything on there. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. Link right there in the description. We have a dedicated link now, so this should be really easy. You just go on, you click, you pay, and you get access to everything else. Also, as I mentioned, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down your 5. Get your 50. That's the deal. Legal in the state of Florida. Play across the sports spectrum. NBA, WNBA, NFL when it comes back. MLB, NHL, it's all there. Go to prizepicks.com. Use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne. Yeah. Five on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frauds. Down to Biscayne. Kept the flow playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick, and follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. We've been following what's been going on, not just in the NBA, but around the sports world right now. I apologize for my tweet last night in which, after watching the Panthers score 5 goals in 9 minutes in the Eastern Conference Finals, which they lead 3-0, I said that there were 9-minute stretches in which the Heat did not score 5 points. I probably overestimated that. There were 9-minute stretches, Greg, where they didn't score any points.
Very true.
And by the way, it's not just them. There plenty of 9-minute stretches where the Dolphins didn't score any points also, especially when Tua wasn't quarterbacking. But the Panthers are a juggernaut right now and maybe the best team in professional sports. And so we're going to talk about them a little bit this offseason. Historically, can they catch the big three Heat in terms of what they accomplished here? And also, the Heat have always been the model franchise down here, but the Panthers have borrowed from them and in some ways perfected it. And so we'll talk about that on another episode. But today we're going to talk about something more depressing, although it's not so depressing because it involves the Knicks. So we might have gotten to this a couple days ago, so we're a couple days late, but there's still time to do this. The Knicks had one of the worst losses I've ever seen, except, Greg, I didn't see it because I passed out with the Knicks up 15.
It was beautiful. Oh, it was beautiful.
So you saw the whole thing, right? Now we're going back to game 1, not game 2. As we speak right now, we're going to do some prize picks for it. We're awaiting game 3, which the series goes back to Indiana. I'm telling you, if there's any NBA fan who can say that the Pacers would be up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals and now going home, there is no NBA fan who has said that. There's no one. There's no one in this country, in the world.
After doing that against the 1 seed Cleveland, Ethan, they're doing it twice in a row, 2 series consecutively on the road in the first 2 games, winning and going home.
Without paying luxury tax, by the way. They're not in the top 15 in salary. And without a top 10 player. I mean, Halliburton's not a top 10 player. He's really good. I don't think most people would put him in the top 10. Siakam's not either. They built out of the middle. It's remarkable, and I will tell you that Heat have enormous respect for what they've done. They do. You talk to people in the Heat organization, they're like, they win this thing, give them their props. Now, of course, nobody at ESPN will even know it happened, But that's a whole other issue. And by the way, the ratings as they're going to dip because they've been up for the Knicks and Pacers because the Knicks.
Yeah.
But if they dip for Pacers, OKC, that's not the fault of the players. That's the fault of the national media coverage. It's their fault. And by the way, I know for a fact that the NBA is tired of the way ESPN covers their team, but they haven't been able to get them to change it. Anyway, the reason we're talking about this at all, and like you said, it was beautiful, is because after Aaron Nesmith, who by the way was a Celtics reject, first round pick, that they ended up getting him and a pick for Malcolm Brogdon from the Celtics.
They thought they were helping the Celtics.
Right, we all did, and then he hit 6 threes, and of course Halliburton hit that shot that went up and down and did the choke thing. But it did get us thinking this the Heat have some history with this sort of thing, and I'm not even going to include any of the losses this year where they were up by 20 plus. Okay, because this year's team, who cares? But I polled this because I was trying to think of what's the worst loss in Heat history. Okay. And our audience, Greg, we're going to give some of the options here, and then we'll talk about it. But our audience is so young on Twitter that they didn't pick the right one. But we'll go through it, and I understand why they didn't pick the right one. But let's go back to the very beginning, and let's just talk about some of their worst losses. There are two, Greg, that stick out during the Riley. Anyway, who cares about pre-Riley? Also, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, because they lost by 68 points pre-Riley, just so that we get that on record if we're going to do the worst losses ever. They lost by 68 points to the Cavs in 91-92, but no one remembers any of that.
No, not even me. I was 18. If I was worried about that at that point, there's a problem. All right, so we're going to eliminate anything pre-Riley. But the two worst losses in the Riley era, as the Zoe Tim era, I think are pretty clear. One was in one arena, right, and one was in the other. So it was right. Okay, so the Allen Houston shot, and then the Mashburn non-shot, right?
Correct.
Those were does anything compare during? I would have to be those two, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were individual performances where you felt like you had your guts ripped out all over the floor that we could probably find if we sifted through game over game. But to your point, if we're just going to think about top level, those games that you'll never forget, those are the two from that era specifically.
All right. Now, the reason that those two hurt the most, other than the fact that Heat team kept running into the Knicks, except for the first year where you had the fight and Van Gundy's leg and all the rest of the stuff, except for the first year, they lost all of them. Okay. And we'll never see series like that again. Okay. Like I say, we'll never see something like the Big Three era again. We'll never see a series. And the reason is, all the drama between the two teams, the Sprewell Hardaway relationship, which had broken down in Golden State, the LJ Zoe relationship, which had broken down, Riley and Jeff Van Gundy coaching against each other, Patrick going against his best friend in Zoe, all of the things that played into those series. But the other thing is, all 4 series went the maximum games, all of them. Like, I think it was 5-game series for one of them, but then the other 3 were 7-game series. So they played the maximum number of games. Every possession was seriously like pulling teeth. Like, it was not fun basketball to watch. Okay. And I was sitting press row for all of it. All right. So I saw all of it. I was right there in Madison Square Garden when we used to sit instead of up in the 3rd level in the corner. We literally sat at MSG behind the basket on the floor. And so PJ Brown threw Charlie Ward right in front of me. Okay. And which was the weirdest thing ever, because those are 2 of the nicest people you ever meet. I have some issues with some of the stuff that Charlie Ward believes in, but PJ was literally the nicest person among my top 5 athletes I've ever covered. And he just lost it and tossed Charlie Ward because he thought he was going at his knees. And that was right in front of me. Anthony Carter's shot over the backboard. Okay. Right in front of me. Okay.
PJ tossed Charlie Ward in Miami, just to clarify.
Miami. I'm sorry. You're right. But I was also on the floor for that one. That's right. But thank you. But the AC shot, thank you, was right in front of me at MSG. The one that went over the backboard. Okay. So these series went the distance every time. tremendous drama again, like drawing blood. Okay, to score. And they tested them emotionally to the point that when they lost one of the series, I think it was the one Mashburn didn't take the shot. Zoe had to tell Pat, and of course Levitard chronicled this. Get the F up and go talk to your team. Okay,
You
that's
know
not
why
bad.
it won't happen again also? Because no team will stick with a head coach losing to a lower seed without home court that many
Mm.
years in a row without firing them. I don't think that there's any org in the league that will stick with a head coach that long. Maybe Miami would with Spo, but that's it.
That's it, right? It's the same team. Okay, but let's compare these two to see which we could eliminate because we're going to say these were the two worst losses. The reason that the Allen Houston one I think sticks out more, even though the other one was really bad, is because it was so sudden, and also remember these were 2 years that Jordan was not with the Bulls. Okay, so there was an opportunity. And the way that 99 set up, this was a lockout shortened season. And the way that 99, and so that's why the Heat were only 6 games better than the Knicks in the regular season, even though it was a 1-8. I mean, they were virtually the same team. And there was the other part of this that the Knicks, the Knicks didn't really put it together during the regular season. They didn't have time. They had injuries. They were better than their record showed. So it was like not an 8 team that you wanted to draw. But the Allen Houston shot was sudden. It just happened bang, 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 like that. But the other thing is, if the Heat had won that series, I firmly believe they would have won the championship. I do. Because that Spurs team that came out on the other side was not the best of the Spurs teams. Whereas 2000, I think they probably would have lost anyway, even if they had kind of gotten through there, probably. But the thing about 2000 is the debate on that one, there were a couple things that happened. One was Nick Pivetta. He got that nickname because Mike Wise and I basically gave it to Tim Hardaway before the game, and then Tim came out with a prepared speech after the game to say we got screwed by Nick Pivetta. That was, of course, Dick Pivetta, the longtime official. There were a couple of calls down the stretch of that, but also, and this is a debate Sedano and I have had forever, and the entire Heat front office has taken his side, and I know you do too, that Mashburn had the ball. He seemed to have a look, but not a totally clean look. He passed it to Clarence Weatherspoon, and Spoon missed.
I would have preferred Mashburn take the shot.
Okay, you're with everybody else. I'm a loner on this one. Which of those two is the worst loss of that era?
It's tough because when the Allen Houston shot happened, I sat in my seat until the entire arena cleared out and just sat there, watched everyone file out. And that was a really rough one because, to your point, I felt like the team that was about to make a run. But I can make that case for the other team as well. Like I against all odds, I'm actually going to go with the Weatherspoon Mashburn loss because when that happened in the moment, and I was in the building for that one as well, you knew that team was never coming back again. And so like there was a finality to that where you were like, okay, so that's the end of that era. And I think that just added to we talk about adding insult to injury. It was like, yeah, they beat us again on our home floor. It was by like 1 point. I remember Spreewell got the ball and threw it up in the air and kind of the clock ran out and it was over. That's the one because you knew that team wasn't coming back. So I'm going to lean in that direction, even though I think like if you asked the majority of Heat fans, if you polled the whole arena, the Allen Houston shot is what people remember feeling worse because it's just a moment in time. It's a buzzer beater, and it was an 8 seed against a 1.
Yeah, I'm still going with the Houston shot, but I get why you're saying that. By the way, the Heat knew it was over. Several people have told me that as soon as that game was over, they're like, "We got to break this up." The part is though, they did break it up successfully. They actually made the team, in my view, better.
Yep.
Even though they went after McGrady and Hill, didn't get either of them, but they ended up getting Eddie,
With a
Brian,
healthy
and
Zoe, I thought that
Anthony
team could win
Mason.
the championship. The
Oh,
Brian Grant,
absolutely.
Mason, EJ, Timmy team. I thought that they reloaded
And
masterfully.
Bruce Bowen, like that
Yep.
they had a squad, but we never got to really see it because Zoe missed 69 games because of the kidney disease, and then came back. They went 8-5, and then they got blown out by Charlotte. Mace may rest in peace. Got in his head, and it was a mess. But I'm still going to stick with Allen Houston. But I see your point on it. I was there covering both, so I wrote about both. You were in the building, so this is not a pain that Brady or Alex could relate to. That's why you're on this episode with me. All right, on the other side of this, though, we'll talk about more current ones, and if any of them can pass it, because most of our fans think they can, even though I don't agree. I think it's one of those two losses. But anyway, Cousins USA. You can find them at cousinsusa.com/5RSN. These are family movers, Fort Lauderdale movers, where they service the entire area down here. Really good people. You should check them out on Instagram as well at Cousins USA. If you go to cousinsusa.com/5RSN, not only do you get all their other promotions, but you're also going to get some free wardrobe boxes. You don't want to have to pack those things yourself, and they can help you with that. They're going to give you everything so that your move it's easy. No fuss, no frills. They're not going to overcharge you for stuff. And again, just really good people. Everybody I've dealt with over there has been terrific. 888-300-6683. That's 888-300-6683. Or just go to cousinsusa.com/5RSN. All right. So, the one loss that jumps out the most in the Shaq era. It's the Wade era, but it's the Wade era where he had Shaq.
Pistons game 7. Oh,
right. Right. I mean, that's the easy one, right? I don't think there's any other question, right?
Yeah. And to our listeners, just for a little bit of behind the scenes content, I want everyone to know that I believe this could be one of the first episodes that Ethan Skolnick is not only hosting, but also producing the episode as we go. So I want our listeners to know that he is stepping up his game as we go.
No,
here.
I've done this before. No. It's just not with you. I just when you're here, Alex is here. I have you do it. But you think I'm letting a turtle, or well, I might let Adele. You think I'm letting a turtle do this? Can't get him to even be on time or speak into the mic.
It's new to me. It's adding new tools to the toolkit.
Well, I still haven't learned how to clean or cook or anything, so that's okay. But yes, all right. So we're going to here's the circumstances for 05. Okay, I thought they had that series under control. Shaq was great that year. This was not the Shaq of 05-06. Damon Jones had given them the spacing they needed, journeyman and all that. They decided to move on from after the year. And Eddie had played pretty well as the third guy for most of the season. They're up 3-2. Dwayne pulls the ribcage muscle. Okay. That Detroit team was a B. That team was tough to play against.
He didn't play in game 6, and you knew you weren't getting that game.
And by the way, on the other side, on the West, that was also not a great Spurs team. They had better teams during that, so there was an opportunity there. They're up 3-2. I remember going to Detroit or Auburn Hills and knowing they had no chance. Like, they went into that game 6 without Dwayne. We found out he wasn't going to play. And I hate to say it because I was always an Eddie defender, but everybody told me, just like I was always a MASH defender, this is why I'm very careful about defending guys like Wiggins now, because he reminds me of them in some ways, okay? That I was like, Eddie will step up, and everybody told me, no, he won't. And he was awful, and they were awful in game 6, just totally hopeless. So they come back to Miami. They got a game 7 on their home floor. And it was clear from the beginning Dwayne was not right. Okay, now Stan was the coach, but in the fourth quarter, I think Dwayne took between 8 and 10 shots. They kept going to Dwayne over and over. And this is the best anecdote I can tell you about this, not at the game itself, but after. That summer, about a month later, this is when I knew Stan was cooked. Okay. That summer, about a month later, I was doing a freelance story for USA Today about players who help in the community. And so it was a photo shoot, one-time thing with Shaq and Work Done at the Delano, okay, on South Beach. So the whole thing was I spent the day with the two of them. So other than Shaq speaking 25 languages so he could speak to every model that came by, I was up with him while he was changing, getting ready, and everything. And all he did the entire day, fucking Stan Van Gundy. fucking give the ball to Dwayne. Whole fourth quarter. I'm like, okay, he's done. That's it. Stan's done. He started the next season. We all know a variety of things happened, and a lot of them were a shame and all the rest. And everyone knows my feelings about Stan. I love Stan, but it was that okay. At that point, that was over. He just kept going to Dwayne over and over and over and over, and Dwayne just did not have anything, Greg.
And Eddie he didn't step up again. It was a game 7 at home. I was in the building for that one as well.
See, you're the
And
problem, not me.
right. I've been in wait till we get to the ones even in, the more recent past, but it was tough, but in retrospect, like it's not as heartbreaking as maybe the Knicks ones that we've previously referenced. And I only say that because of the benefit of hindsight and the fact that I know that they made the trades that they made, which I know you didn't think they improved, and that's fine. They got a
Well, it
title
wasn't
out of it.
fine.
So that's where it kind of lessens the sting. Cause I, like you, think that team, even though in theory they really upgraded the roster from a talent perspective when they made the Antoine Walker and Jason Williams additions and James Posey, etc. I thought that other team could have won the title with Shaq playing the way he was playing. The fact that Shaq couldn't carry them to a victory at the end of that Detroit series was also kind of a tough pill to swallow as that season came to a close. But it doesn't hurt as bad because the next season they came back, and for all of the troubles and all of the heartbreak, they won the championship. So, but that definitely, it makes the list of, as we go through the eras in Heat history.
Yeah, it was really there's a trend here of them losing in years where there was an opportunity to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Like their timing has been
Well, talk about
even the
timing. Let's quickly pivot to the next one because it's
well,
the loss to Dallas with the big
yeah,
3, right?
well, right. We're going there, and then also, like I mentioned, timing in 15-16, Bosch getting sick. We'll never know.
Yeah.
This one's not going to make the list. I was at this one too in Toronto, but they had nothing left by Game 7 because they had no Bosch and no Whiteside, so they lost to the Raptors. And I think they could have beaten Cleveland that year. They had handled LeBron pretty well that season. They had a lot of confidence against LeBron, and they had a team that matched up really well with the Cavs. But yes, the Big 3 era. I mean, there were a million losses during the first year that were really painful for regular season losses. The Millsap game, the
They all
Ellington
felt
game,
like the
the
earth
end of the
was
world.
crumbling, Ethan.
End of the world. Well, the Dallas game, of course, 9-8, and us waiting outside the
The
locker room
losses
for
to
55
Chicago
minutes.
throughout the season.
Well, the 0-5 stretch at home with Crygate, the Chicago game at home was the one that did that, where 3 players were crying in the locker room. I mean, everything seemed like the end of the world, but there were 2 losses that actually were. So I'll just ask you of these 2. I said Game 6 against Dallas because that was the finality of it. That was when we knew, okay, LeBron was not going to be LeBron. It just wasn't going to happen. But Game 2 is the one that more people said was painful because they were up 15. Dwayne and LeBron were celebrating. Dwayne was celebrating in front of the Dallas bench, and the Mavs came back and won that game. And we know kind of that reset the series. For
Yeah.
you, we got to choose one of them. But for you, is it Game 2 or is it Game 6? Because by Game 6, I kind of thought they were done anyway. Like I was like, all right, well, LeBron is just not himself. So this is not. And by the way, Rio finally started in that game. I don't know why Spo waited 5 games. I always say this to get Bibby out of the starting lineup. And Mario played really well, but it wasn't enough. Game 2 or Game 6, I guess.
I have to say, that the way the series unfolded, like watching LeBron be a shell of himself, just that in general is what will stick with me the most. It's not a single moment of a loss, but for the purposes of this episode and to stay on task, I'm going to go with Game 2 because they had
Mm,
that game. Dwayne sunk
yeah.
a 3 in the corner and he left it up there. And if I remember correctly, from that moment on, it was all downhill, and they had that series under control. They had such an iconic run, like that run through the Eastern Conference. And I just remember the Levitard rants after each series. And catching all the bad takes that came from everybody as people doubted that team initially. It would have felt good to just shut up the world or shut up America, the sports world, with that team against Dallas. And that series was probably one of the more humbling moments as a Heat fan, because we were really loud, puffing our chest out all year. And then you finally got humbled. And truthfully, like, if you really pinpoint the moment, it was the Game 2 collapse. So I'm going to lean in that direction for that era as well, even though, like, the thought of just what happened in Dallas with LeBron and, he's close to a triple double, but it's not LeBron type numbers. Like, that stuff really, that's what lost the series. Dwayne would have had another finals MVP if things had gone differently, but Game 2 is when the whole thing shifted.
Nobody would remember the coughing or any of the other stuff that happened then, or Greg Doyle getting LeBron off his game by asking him why he was fading in fourth quarters, or 3:30 in the morning Dallas time, LeBron tweeting "now or never" before a game. I remember being at I won't say I wasn't in perfect condition, but I was at a Whataburger drive-through and I was with a couple buddies, and we're like, did he just tweet that? Now or never, 3:30. Oh, they're cooked. They're cooked. Take the Mavs. Okay, so we've nominated some. Let's move to the next era. We get out of the Big Three era. I mean, look, they were awful losses, like that last loss to the Spurs and all that. But the loss when the air conditioning went out. Okay, and all that. Like there are a lot of bad losses, but we're talking about like losses that give you like that misery, like that finality, that or what could have been, right? So, and I don't think that the Heat were winning that 14 series no matter what. Honestly, I just don't.
No,
The team
some
around
people
LeBron
may
was too
say,
cooked.
how dare you glaze past it, like, because it was LeBron's last game in Miami, and that's how it went. Like, that Big Three era essentially ended in such a horrible fashion. But truthfully, like, that crash and burn, I think anybody who was close enough to the team kind of could sense that maybe that was on the horizon. So it wasn't as it didn't hurt as bad, because the Spurs just wiped them off the floor. So it
Oh,
wasn't
that's
like
the thing.
by
The
a
Spurs
bucket,
was just right. No, this wasn't like a Knicks team like grinding out
Yeah.
82 points. Like the Spurs were playing at an all-time level. Like we talk about a great Spurs team, that was a great Spurs team. Okay, like that's so no, they weren't winning that series anyway. I mentioned the 16 game against Toronto, but I don't think that meets the list. There's no games I even remember until Jimmy gets here. All right, so I think that as we look at the Jimmy era, the one that's going to jump out the most. Look, the first finals, once Goran and Bam got hurt, it was just he did a Herculean thing to keep them in it. But I can't cite the other losses in the finals. They didn't have a chance. I mean, the ones Goran was their engine along with Jimmy during that postseason. It wasn't going to happen. It's really 22 game 7, right? Like that's it. Like it's the
Guess who
shot
was in
that
the
Jimmy.
building for that one too?
And Pat mentioned that when
I
Pat talked
was.
about Jimmy at his last presser. He talked. Pat talked about that game and Jimmy switching to the other side and getting into his 3-point motion. I still have no problem with Jimmy for taking that shot. It was a kill shot. He was in rhythm. I know he was not a traditional 3-point shooter, but again, for all the issues I have with Jimmy, I don't have an issue with Jimmy about that. That's the one, right, in his era, like because
Oh,
it's another
100%.
situation. They could
I
have won
mean,
the
we have
finals.
to acknowledge that they also lost game 5 at home, because I came down there
Yeah.
and covered that game with you guys. And
Mhm.
so I was at that loss too.
My God.
Uh,
Greg is
so
not
yeah,
being credentialed again.
the fact that I'm still standing here, such a dedicated fan and talking Heat every day, shows the perseverance on my part that I was at
Yes.
all these. But that game 7, he took the shot that I mean, that's the shot Jimmy Butler basically was brought to Miami to take, and it didn't go down, but you live with that. But now that as we look back on it all, and it's crazy because they made another finals run, but that season was so nondescript otherwise, and they were an 8 seed, and it's like you just didn't expect it. So it was so unlikely that it felt like they were closer in the season where Jimmy missed the 3. So it felt like like, I don't know. To me, Denver outclassed Miami when they got to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
finals in that
Yeah.
run, whereas
Yeah.
that team was a 1 seed. Jimmy Butler was at his best. Bam was playing really well in that playoff run. and they lost it. And that was a Golden State team that I think Miami could have beaten.
Well, that's the biggest thing. I keep coming back to that. I think the Heat would have bullied that team. I think so. If you look at the way that Heat team was constructed, there was a toughness to that team. You had PJ, right? I mean, Kyle was still playing at a reasonably high level. There was
Caleb didn't
finals
even
experience.
off the bench.
No, there was Oh, exactly. There was finals experience on that team. And yeah, I think and look, for what it's worth, Tyler was healthy, right? Like, right, because Tyler wasn't healthy
Starting to
in the
get
Denver
there.
year.
I don't know how healthy. And PJ Tucker also was not very healthy by the end of that, even though he
Right.
was playing big minutes. So there would
Yeah.
have been limitations and challenges. But Bam and Jimmy, if we're going to think through that era, and I don't mean to interject here, I'll stop interrupting you, but that's probably the run where Bam and Jimmy were probably at their best together if we look at
Yeah.
it holistically.
Also, I hate to say it, Jimmy would have bullied Wiggins in that series,
Yeah.
which is kind of depressing. But yeah. So all right, so let's close on this. So we have the ones we've identified. I'm going to throw both the Heat Knicks ones in there because you and I have a little bit of a disagreement there. Although I see where you're going. I actually wrote my best game column ever after the one you're talking about, so I'm kind of partial to it. But I
But
still
we
think
can narrow it down. Let's do the
no, but
Houston shot.
well, either of them. And then we have that you chose game 2 against Dallas, 2011, right? Game 7 against Detroit at home. And we've also got the game 7 against Boston at home in 22. Here's why I would eliminate the Detroit. I'm sorry, did I miss one?
No, but there's just housekeeping notes because we're going through these losses. Let's remember that the Heat have lost by 55 in the playoffs against Cleveland in their most recent series, and also have lost by 47 in the playoffs in the 2020-2021 season where they played Milwaukee, and obviously that was really bad.
Yes.
So I just want to obviously
Well,
we're not
I
doing like
think we're
point
reframing
differential,
it
but like
as
those were some
most.
pretty bad losses, including the most. So to the newest Heat fan, you're not crazy. The loss to Cleveland in the playoffs this past year was
Right.
pretty damn bad. It's the second worst loss in Heat history.
It was, but I think we're reframing this as we go. I think it's more the winning
The
versus misery
implications,
thing.
of course.
It's more heartbreaking. I think most heartbreaking losses in Heat history, and I think we've gotten to that by the end of the episode, because it's hard for a loss to Cleveland to be heartbreaking by 55 when you knew that this Heat team was pretty much trash by the
You're right.
end. It's right. So it's kind of like it's hard for me to put it there. So I would say it's heartbreaking. This team wasn't going anywhere. So it's really the heartbreaking thing. It's what could have been and what happened, which is more what happened in the Knicks. And that's why when we talk about winning versus misery, it's not winning versus being a bad team. Misery is knowing there's some opportunity and not making the most of it. That's how they really characterize it, and that's what this is. So this is the most miserable, heartbreaking losses. So I'll change the title on it. But let's go to it, okay? And here's why I'm going to eliminate the Detroit one. They did win the next year.
Yeah.
They won a championship the next year. So they got at least Dwayne and Shaq as the core got their get back the next season. And it's also why I'm going to eliminate 2011 because they won the next year. It actually drove them. And I remember I was in Dallas for the season opener after the lockout, which started on Christmas, by the way, that season. They blew out Dallas to start the next season. So they had all summer to think about it. They came back better. They added Battier, and they were a better team at that point. And then, of course, they added Ray, right, the next year, right? So that's I'm going to eliminate those two. So to me, it comes down to 22, the Jimmy shot for our newer audience, or back in the Heat Knicks days. And the argument to be made for the Jimmy shot is they would have gone to the finals.
Yes. Listen,
But
as
I'm
someone,
still choosing the other.
you
I'm still
are
choosing the other. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So this is good. I mean,
We don't
sometimes
agree
we're
for a change.
criticized of always agreeing with each other. Ethan,
Yeah.
I'm going with the Jimmy shot to me. And listen, I've been a Heat fan this whole time. I was in the building for both of those. And like I said, for the Allen Houston shot specifically, I sat in the arena. My uncle and I were there, and we sat there until everyone filed out. We were the last people to
Yeah.
walk out and stared at the court. It was so awful. But there's just something about the fact that that Jimmy team with PJ Tucker, with just what they had built around it, I thought that that team had enough to get it done. And it to me, they were closer. They were closer than that team back when Allen Houston made the shot. And maybe when people listen back to this, they will disagree with me because I know you're going the other direction. But for me, it's the Jimmy shot.
And I see what you're saying because we would have looked at the Jimmy era totally differently. He probably gets re-signed. I mean, a lot of things happen, but you can't argue he didn't have enough help if they end up winning that championship, right? So I get all of it. And then we look at Bam different. We look at everything different. But those Heat Knicks series, like the level of hatred between those two teams, which was real. And I know there was between the Heat and Boston. I get it. But the Heat also got their get back against Boston the next year. Okay, they didn't get they didn't win the championship, but we got it back.
Right.
But those series, man, like that Allen Houston shot, or I kind of co put them together. The one the next year, they just they just couldn't. That team, like that it was so. And here's the other thing: the franchise had not won a championship at that point. And now it's like, okay, well, yes, the Jimmy shot was
adding
awful.
to a list of championships you already own. I can
Right.
see that.
Right.
Because
So
the
I think
Derek
it's a
White
good.
tip in, we got to sneak that in there. That was
We
a
do, but they won
heartbreaking
the
night.
next game
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
But that, see,
exactly. You're right. You're
that
right.
actually made it better. I mean, that kind of reminded me of what the Panthers just did against Toronto, where they had an awful home game, lost 2-0, but then they got to go win in Toronto 6-1 and have those fans file out. It's like, well, okay, in retrospect,
We'll
that's pretty
take that.
good. Like,
Yeah.
we'll take it. Yeah, the Derek White one was terrible at the time, and yes, I know people are heartbroken, but they came right back and they made it more embarrassing for the Celtics. So anyway, we'll poll this, and we'll get into it. There. We thank our sponsors, but Greg and I finally disagree. Got to the end of the episode. Most heartbreaking losses, by the way, not worse. Thanks to our sponsors, cousins.com / cousinsusa.com / 5RSN. Prize Picks. Use that code FIVE.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.